Hey,
Welcome,
hey,
welcome,
ladies.
welcome. Yay. We are back once again. Um, and this week, we're talking about acceptance and awareness. Um, and yeah, like I had this kind of coming up between some different conversations, whether we were talking about disability, whether we were talking about trans rights, like whatever it was, about how we really should be shifting things from an awareness scope to an acceptance. And so, like, I'd sent out a couple of different things to Jenny last week and was like, hey, next couple of weeks, what about this subject, this subject, this subject? She's like, yes. And I was like, okay, there we go. That's kind of how we do it around here, guys. So, this is TransParents. I am your host, Amber. My pronouns are she, her, and this is my co host. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jenny. All my pronouns are also she, her. I have a trans adult son, and I am the treasurer for the Advocate Alliance of Broken Arrow, a local queer affirming, queer loving community in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And I am
Yay!
also on TikTok as Trans Loving Mama. It's right down there below me. Follow me. I try to make trans positive content from the perspective of a parent.
Right. And that's kind of that's what the show is, guys, is just two moms who want to kind of educate, not necessarily educate, just inform you about things that we've experienced, and that we continue to experience so that you kind of learn what it's like to be a parent, but also so that if you're struggling as a parent, you can like reach out, come here for information, come here for support if you need it. If you need extra support, like that's kind of what I do with my business, is kind of helping guide parents through this acceptance process because it can be really confusing and it can be really hard for some parents. We get that. And so we kind of decided we just put this out here so that, again, if there were parents out there, if there were people out there who really, really, really needed support, then they had an extra place to go. And last week, well, not last week, but really a couple of weeks back on the 31st, March 31st, was Transgender Day of Visibility. And that weekend, I think on Friday, I believe on the 29th, President Biden had made a proclamation. And within that proclamation for Transgender Day of Visibility, he really kind of shifted the wording, the lingo within that statement of moving from just an awareness piece to acceptance. And that really kind of stood out. Like we've acknowledged this holiday before, but the verbiage that he used was really kind of a shift from the administration. And I think honestly, it's an important shift that we need to be making in general because instead of saying we need to look at this group of people, how about we say, let's look at you and I? Like it brings it more into that sphere of we are all equals instead of here's a group. I, you know what I mean, Jenny? Like I get like it's almost like sometimes when we put a label on someone, it isolates them more. And we don't do it for that reason. We do it to bring awareness, right? Because we understand that there's not enough awareness around the rights of this particular group, whether it be their access to health care or going to the
Right.
bathroom that aligns with them, right? Their documentation, any of that. But we do at the same time need to move from this, it's just an awareness piece to an acceptance piece.
Right. I think that when my dad and his wife kind of came into understanding and knowing that, my son was trans, that you know, my dad started off by saying, well, I mean, that's fine, but, he's never going to be a man or a real man or something like that. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm not asking you to accept that he's a biological male. Can you accept that he's a trans boy? Can we start there? And whether you think that still makes him a female, cool. Can you start with he's a trans person, he's a trans boy, and start there? And it helped a lot. I mean, I think it helped a lot. It just not expecting everyone to immediately. I do have that expectation because if you tell me who you are, I believe you. I don't have any reason not to believe you. It doesn't impact me for you to tell me who you are, what you want to be called, how you want to be referred to. Cool. I mean, that works. But understanding that some people just are not going to necessarily do that. Can we start somewhere? And those labels are important. It's real easy. I think it's, as a cis person, it's kind of a privilege to be like, well, I don't have labels and I don't see this. And it kind of gives that I don't see color thing. Yes, you
Right.
do. Yes, you do. Sometimes notice that someone who is a woman might look more masculine. I mean, there have been cisgender women who've been mistaken for trans women.
Right.
And, that transphobia just really impacts everyone. And that label just kind of becomes about that's who I am. And that's part of my whole experience. And if you don't know that, then if pull me out of a car accident and I am male presenting all the way. I'm a trans man, but I haven't had, top surgery. Maybe there's some confusion there, or maybe I've heard of people really being mistreated in emergencies when being taken to the hospital because all of a sudden it's this big shocking thing when there's something else under their clothes, which is
Right.
so silly because it's like, just treat the person, their gender really doesn't have a whole lot to do with that unless the injury is specifically, I guess, to
Right.
their genitals, but that's still just their biological sex. I'm going off on a tangent. Anyway, the labels do serve a purpose, but it would sure be nice to get to a place where we didn't have to, identify everybody and, we kind of out people in that way. And there's just no
Right.
reason for it. But, that's not where we're at right now. And we have to deal with life as is, as it
Right.
presents it, and continue to work for a better future. Yeah, real
Right.
gender is not biologically tied. Right. I went to
No.
a gender reveal party today, Amber.
Actually saw that on Facebook. I was like flipping through. I was like, oh, look at there. Yeah.
They're not my thing, but it was my boss and it was her children,
Yeah.
and her new grandbaby. And you know what? I went, it was fine. And of course, you hear the little conversations happening as you're mingling, and everybody, well, what do you think it is? What do you hope it is? And there's just kind of always that feeling in me of like, first of all, whatever your ultrasound showed, listen, let me tell you what, things can change. So
Right.
don't
Right.
get too attached. But a lot of it comes down to these ideas that we have. Like, as soon as I see something on an ultrasound, I begin assigning entire traits to this person. I begin deciding what
Jobs.
you're gonna like. You're gonna
Jobs. Expectations.
Oh yeah, we're
Real
gonna play
quick.
ball. You're gonna wear the dino clothes,
Yep.
and oh, it's daddy's little princess, and all these things that ultimately come down to, if we would pay more attention to that and recognize that we do that, then we can start to recognize, well, is that necessary? Why do I have to decide this future human's entire
Life.
personality just because of what I saw on an ultrasound? So it's
We're
always
so
a
much. We're so much more than that body part.
right, right,
So we wrap everything around that body part, and then suddenly there's like this again incongruence.
right.
Um, and I want to welcome. We've got so many people in the
We
comments.
do have so many
So
people. Welcome. Hi,
right.
Kate.
So
Hi,
we have Tiana. She's here. Welcome,
Fiona.
welcome, sweetie. And then Dr. Diana. Acceptance and understanding is critical. And she put in here we let her have the night off, but she was still available for questions in the comments. And then of course we have Jeffrey.
Hi,
Awesome. Thank you
Jeffrey.
so much. And he made it. He's
Hi,
here to learn. And then Cooper. And I think that's everybody so far. Yes. Because he was telling you preach a second ago. And I do think, let's see, Cooper put, I hope Biden's promise isn't empty, unlike those companies who rainbow wash during Pride Month but don't actually make progress. And I agree with that. Like,
yeah,
I was hoping, I will say that when Biden came in, I wanted more from Biden.
yeah.
But I
I
also
mean,
understand that I also understand that the Congress that he's working with, there isn't but so much you can accomplish. If he goes passing things through executive order, then that can automatically be flipped by the next person who comes in. And when we
right,
put something in place, I want it to stay. I don't want it to be able to be bent. I don't want the next politician to come in and circumvent it. I want it to be established. So if it takes a little bit longer, okay. But I have seen where he has made differences and he has tried to push compared to And that's all I'm going to say to that because I don't want to get into a political speech here. I brought Biden into this because, again, he made this proclamation, and there was a big. I read an article about a journalist who was talking about his proclamation and how it was a shift in language and how it really was talking more of an acceptance versus awareness piece. And awareness just says that, hey, this is a group of people that have this issue going on. Acceptance says they're one of us and that we don't all have equal rights until they can go to the bathroom they choose. They get to use the pronouns they wish. Their documents can be changed.
Right.
They don't get grief for wanting to get gender affirming care. That's acceptance. That's not, you don't belong here and I have to write bills and push you out of places, schools, bathrooms, sports, healthcare. Awareness says, or it says that, or acceptance says that we all have that. And we know that's not where it's at, but that's where it should be. And I think it's kind of more that shift in language that Biden was trying to use, was saying it's been long enough. And honestly, there's enough anti-trans legislation out there. He really is kind of saying, like, look, like, why are we going after singling out a subset of people? Like, anytime a population has ever done this, it's never been good. Ever. Ever. What are your thoughts on, I guess, that piece?
You know, I agree, I believe, with Cooper. Yeah, I'm looking over the comments. I agree with Cooper. A lot of times, a lot of things feel kind of performative. And it actually did cross my mind at that party. Genuinely crossed my mind. Because I thought, oh, we all, anyway. But absolutely crossed my mind. It's funny. A lot of things feel very performative. And unless there's concrete, measurable action behind words, they can fall flat. And right now, I feel like the trans community, I know as the parent of a person in the trans community, I just need more than pretty words, pretty promises, and nice sentiment. Right. Because, my kid and people like him are in danger of having, just constantly, they're constantly in danger of having another thing against them that limits their rights, their protections, that limits their safety. And, I'd like to see more. I don't know what the solution is, especially because I feel like the right has just gone so bonkers extreme. And I know you have these very centrist conservatives, but I'm like, don't y'all ever go like, wait, why are we doing that? We don't really need to go. That's not, anyway. I just
they don't have any skin in the game.
I hate them all.
They don't have skin in the game. The majority of them.
Well,
now there are a couple that do, and they still go against their kid.
Absolutely.
Because they can't see past themselves.
Yeah.
Wasn't it
Dick Cheney who was going to run for president, but then he didn't because his daughter was gay? And I'm probably thinking of the wrong person. I don't know. It's been a while. And
I can't remember if it was him or not.
It was because his daughter Liz Cheney, it was her sister, who's a lesbian.
I think so. But he ran for vice. He was VP.
Yeah, he was vice president, but I thought he was going to run for president and decided not to. Anyway, I could be making things up. I could have heard that somewhere.
Maybe. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. I don't want to get into this. Yeah, as you said, a lot of the queer freedom or lack thereof is tied up in politics, even though that's not how we want things. Agreed, Cooper. And that's unfortunately because I despise politics. I voted every year, when it was time to vote, but for the most part, I tried to stay out of politics, right? I didn't want to be involved. I didn't want to know how all of it worked. I didn't want to know until probably about 30. And then it was like, okay, you need to know. And I was going into healthcare, like I was moving into healthcare spaces, and it was like they make the legislation for healthcare bills. So it was like, okay, I have to start paying attention to this. And then as time went on, my son comes out. I decide, okay, my politics in my state is a little too red for me to even enter into because it might paint a target on his back until I felt like he was older and safer. Name change, all of that stuff. But again, you look at how many bills have been written anti or pro. We covered 2 episodes this season for this on these exact topics, and as many as there are out there, the most on any subject that's ever been out there. You can't not talk about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially as a young person, we don't really know what's going on. It's
Yes,
intimidating.
Wendy.
And you feel like, well, I feel like I know that as a younger person, as a younger adult, I felt like I can't even talk about this because if somebody comes up and says, well, what about Iran Contra? I'm like, I don't know. So should I even be allowed to speak if I don't know? And understandably, you should be making informed statements, but the only way to know is to talk about it. The only way to know sometimes is to say the wrong thing and have someone correct you. And the thing about that is, and I still believe this, we don't all need to attack every single person when they're wrong about something. Sometimes they don't know. They don't know they're wrong. They don't know why they're wrong. I got called a groomer on Facebook not too long ago. And I mean, y'all, I wake up ready to fight. I'm at a level 8 the instant I wake up in the morning. I'm just like this naturally.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
When I start reading the news pieces and it's talking about the new bills, I'm like, right?
And so, and I'm delicate. So my first instinct was definitely to say something hateful back at him. And instead I just said, man, you don't know me. I bet you don't know any parents of trans kids. And if you ever want to talk, I'm willing to talk to you. Hit me up. Shoot me a message, because you don't know that I'm just a parent who loves their child. And my kid is a great human being. He's an artist. He's a student. He's a friend. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's so smart. He's just this incredible person. And you're writing him off, and you're writing me off based on this one detail about him.
Right.
Sure, it encompasses a big part of who he is, but it not any more than me being a woman. I mean, yeah, like a lot of I see through the lens of womanhood, and in this world that comes with its own, it just comes with its own baggage.
Right.
But it's not everything that I am. And to disregard, we've got to kind of find it in ourselves to either scroll past if somebody's being, groomer is a pretty hateful thing to say. It's an inflammatory statement. That's a mean thing to say. But I still hope that we will take the opportunity sometimes to take a softer approach and say to someone, hey, if you ever want to talk, I'm happy to talk to you. Because you don't ever know everything you're talking about, and there's more to it. And because people change and people grow and people learn, and that's how
they do.
Learn. And in politics, I had to kind of grow into it too. When I was a teacher, and I discovered that, holy crap, like politics really influences my classroom.
Right.
And then I have to get involved.
That was my stepdad. He was the same way. He didn't want to do it either. Carol Ossenbach. Hi, Carol. That's someone that Dr. Diana had invited. And I believe you've sent, actually, I don't believe, I know you sent me tons of emails this week, Dr. Diana, and my schedule has been poor. I have not gotten to any really emails this week, and I have got to go answer all of
Carol.
them. Right? So, and Tiana had put something really kind of, important in here. So Tiana is trans. Everybody, just so if you don't know. So the statement is, my mom was talking to me the other day. We have a couple of friends who work the same job, one trans and one cis. And the mom was saying that the trans friend was talking about being exhausted after work, and the mom couldn't understand it because the cis friend said they don't get as tired. And I had to remind the mom of the exhaustion that comes from being trans in public. And she said, you're right. I now understand. So even for my mom, who is wholeheartedly supportive, sometimes they still forget. And after that, she said, and I had to remind her what I went through working in public. Right. And this is true because I had different women coming to me for counseling. And I can say that the ones that worked in public, like retail, the stress was 10 times that from somebody who didn't, just because they were confronted daily with whether or not that customer that was coming in, whether or not they were going to be transphobic.
Right.
And customers who were transphobic were very open about being transphobic and very rude. And it's just, I can understand why it'd be exhausting.
I think it'd be exhausting to constantly be in that state of, where is the next thing going to come from? Is the next person, how are they going to be toward? I mean, just to always be on guard like that and always wonder how you're going to be approached. That does sound exhausting. I know that having worked in some male dominated fields, I've been exhausted as a woman to deal with that, because it's like,
she said hi back.
What do like somebody I work with now, they work in a different state, but they came recently, and we were in I saw mobile homes, and we were in one of the mobile homes. It was staged, and I had sat down on the bed, and I kind of laid back, like, I'm just going to lay here and take a nap. And he was like, can I snap a picture? And I thought he meant, oh, I'm going to take a picture to show the boss that you're laying down on the job. I thought it was going to be funny. And someone else in my office came to me and said, he probably took that in like he's kind of a known like misogynist and perv. And I was like, oh my God, it didn't even occur to me. And I was not, I wasn't like doing anything inappropriate, but it just left me with this icky feeling, like, I'm just trying to be trusting. I'm just like, it didn't even cross my mind. Why do I have to be on guard for something like that? And to think,
and if we have to be on guard,
and just be on guard about how the world is going to perceive them and treat them, gross.
24/7. 24/7. I mean, no matter where you go. Is it the gas station? I mean, it's so bad that I'll be honest. Like, I know that my son is perfectly okay walking into places, right, by himself. 26 years old. He's perfectly okay. But his younger brother and me, we're always kind of like we want to be with him. Like, it's kind of like we need to be with you. Like, on guard, like, hands off. But if somebody comes near, what do you want?
Really? Because you just don't know. You just don't know. I mean, like, my son was asked literally at a cash register, are you trans? And in a really, really red county, after someone had already been targeted and killed because of their gender identity, like within a day or two of that, it was just kind of like in the same county, like half a mile away.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, no, never going in there again.
Right. And then you don't know. I keep a few little visual cues in my office to let people know I'm safe. Just a few little things here and there. They're like, hey. But you never know if you say yes to that. Is it somebody that's going to be like, oh my God, so is my son, and I have nobody to talk to? Or, oh my gosh, that's great. What are your pronouns? Or if they're going to be like, oh, and hate you for it, and just yuck.
Right.
Yuck. That does sound exhausting. Just being on guard all the time. I know that feeling. I know that feeling of anxiety. I've had it before. Of course, I can't speak from the trans experience, but I know that feeling of constantly being on guard and constantly wondering what's going to happen. You can't put your shoulders down. I feel like you can take a good deep breath, and being that safe place for people and letting people know. My mom and I went to a Michael's craft store, and there was an individual there with a pin that said they, them. And so when my mom said something about an old store that used to exist, I said, oh, well, they probably aren't familiar with that store. They're pretty young. And of course, my mom comes in with, yeah, she's probably too young. And I'm like, eh. But I do try to take little steps to do that, which may sound performative, but I really want if somebody's around me, to know you're okay with me.
Well, you want them to pick up, like, the people that are around you to pick up that you've used what's correct. Like, in other words, that was a gentle way of guiding your mother to use they, them, because you had already recognized that. And of course, she didn't pick it up. She went with the she, right? And that happens, but that is one way that you can kind of, again, try to help educate, inform people around you by
I'd like
pointing
to know
something out
from
that by using their correct pronouns.
right. I'd like to know from our trans audience members who are commenting, what are some other ways that allies or parents, friends, people who love, honor, respect all people, what are some other ways that we can make things safer, things better? Are there little actions we can take in your presence and not in your presence that you find helpful or because I'm not doing everything right. There's probably things I'm missing.
Right.
Are there other things?
Right. And Byron, I want to say hey, just because he and Mariah are traveling, so they're in Orlando this evening.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Dr. Diana was like, the requirement to be on guard did not exist when I transitioned in 1990. And it's just 30
Wow.
years, 34 years ahead, and now you have to be.
Yeah.
Like, why are we moving backwards, guys? Like, I just didn't think that we would roll back.
Right.
I mean, not to be silly, but I just think that when I was born, I thought we kind of had gotten to a place.
No, Tiana, that's never off the table. I will, like I said, I'm delicate, but I'm also scrappy. I'm mouthy. I don't know how I haven't been hit more because I am very mouthy and it's very difficult to shut my face off. We were at
the facial expressions. Oh my gosh. Like, I may not say it,
but you'll be getting that like really bad eyebrow and like that disgusted look. My mother would be like, Amber, change your face. And I'm like,
I know.
Crap, change my face. What do you change my?
And I won't think about it soon enough. Instead, they'll get even more like twisted and retorted because I'm just like, what? Huh?
Yeah. Oops.
Somebody,
we're at
a brunch for my work, and a brand new coworker, and I want him to feel welcome. I don't want him to feel bad. Said he and his wife, they were going to some conference with, I'm gonna get this name wrong. Is it Jordan Peterson? Anyway, misogynist, just
yes,
person.
Yes.
And yes. I mean, I instantly was like, so my boss and everybody's like, oh, who's that? And who's this? And I'm just over here like eating my eggs. And he said, well, Jenni knows who it is. You should see her face. And I was like, I'm sorry. I can't stop it. Why? No. Why are you going? Then I went to talk to him. Like, why are you going to see that? Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop it. Stop.
Well, I mean, yeah. Oh, there's so many people that are like that at the moment, though. And I guess my thing is like a lot of them speak the same language, which is hate.
Yeah. A lot of it's ignorance. I think more and more of our young men are getting sucked into these very alpha male misogynistic things because they see one thing on the internet and they feel like somebody is saying something that makes them feel seen, makes them feel heard. And don't we gravitate toward that? Of course. And then what we tend to do. That's fantastic. I love that. I fully support that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is wonderful.
I love to ask things like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
When people ask or say dumb things. Like, what do you mean? I don't get it.
Explain that.
And they'll be like, it's just a joke. And I'm like, I know, but I don't get it. What is it? What was the joke?
Why is it humorous?
They're usually like, you're too sensitive for it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not the one who can't explain my joke, so.
Who's sensitive? Right. Usually you come at them with enough questions that they can't answer, and it slows them down a little bit. And that tends to unpack too, like why they're so biased, why the discrimination is coming out, like, well, such and such, or this happened, or like they usually will tap into wherever that fear is coming from. And that's usually a fear response.
Yeah. My thing is, why do you feel comfortable saying that to me? Like, that's what I want you to consider. I can't change the way you think. I can't change. I don't have time. Like, do we have a while and I can try to help you unpack all this, but I'm too busy and you don't seem to care. Why do you feel comfortable saying that to me?
Right.
One of the guys from work was like, did you hear that song by Dylan Mulvaney? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, I was just wondering what you thought of it. I'm like, I don't care. Dylan Mulvaney doesn't impact my life. I'm happy for Dylan Mulvaney. I want Dylan to live her best life. But if
Right?
she put out a song, is it on Taylor Swift's The Tortured Poets department? Then I'm not interested. By the way, the Tortured Poet department is out and it's amazing. I've only been able to get through like 5 songs because every time I try to listen to it, something interrupts me and I have to give it my attention.
Right. I haven't even jumped into it yet.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Oh, I have an idea. Hand out
The
stickers with
little track she did for Kim Kardashian's really good.
ah.
Hard. Why make it harder? Why? It's hard every day. And I'm not persecuted. Like, I mean, even as a woman, yeah, my thing's tough, but shoot, I've been doing it for 45 years. I pretty much figured it out. It's still difficult, but like people are not trying to actively harm me.
No.
People aren't celebrating my struggles. That's what's so weird is when I see
Yeah,
celebrate,
that
laugh, or
there is like this performance
yeah,
from the other side of like, woo, let's throw a party. And it's like, what is wrong with you?
what's wrong with you? That's a person who's suffering. That's a population of people who are suffering. Why would we celebrate that? On any, I don't understand. It's not something I
I
would.
think it just shows where one party has slipped a very slippery slope. And I don't know where you guys went, but because they talk about centrist and modern, but I can tell you that there's what, 21 now that have left, 22 that are leaving in the House, in that party, because they're like, we can't do anything. This is the most chaotic, the worst session there's ever been. We've got nothing done because people want to be performative over stuff like this. The just to have our security bill passed this past year, the funding for that, it was held up over abortion rights and trans rights for months and months and months. They wouldn't approve any positions. And if we had actually had some kind of declaration of war, what would we have done? We didn't have people in position because they were holding up the confirmations
And it just
over
weakens
this
everything. It weakens everything.
because you're too weak minded to accept people.
Right. It's silly. Very, very silly.
I
Hey,
do think I feel like it's more of an older, I hate to say it, but I do feel like the older the age group, the harder the pushback. I do know that there's definitely still people who are anti-trans that are young as well,
oh
but I
yeah.
do feel like it's the older generations that push a lot harder
Right.
back. And the problem with that is those older generations control most of Congress, whether that be at the state level
Yeah.
or at the federal level.
But there's just as many hateful who are willing to step up and run at all ages. You always think it's kind of going to get better with each generation. And I guess we have to admit that it has, because certainly gay rights have come a
Right.
long way since even I like graduated high school, but it's still just, I don't know. There's just, so
I
maybe
wouldn't
what do we
say it's the
have to
bare
do, like
minimal. I
more
wouldn't say
years?
it's the bare minimal, but we've gone a little past bare minimum, and that's it on
Right.
gay rights. Like I really feel like we're just past bare minimum. And yeah, like that started. They were beginning to try and get that done. I graduated in '95, and I would say by the time I was getting married and having kids, so '98, 2000 is when we were starting to bring in those first bills and the first pushback against gay rights. And we finally, I don't think we got that all established until I think the last one was put in place was 2015. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I
And
should
we're
have
still at like bare minimum 10
other than
years
that.
after that.
Yeah. Here we
But I
are.
wouldn't say the political theater for the last decade has not helped that any.
No,
I
it's
think
just
that made it worse,
a bit. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And because I think if you go back before that, we were really making headway. And I think, yeah, up until Obama, we were making a lot of like we were being progressive. And I'll
But
just say since
Obama
then,
pissed that pissed a lot of people off. That is where I think things got worse only
That's
because,
how that's how we got the next president.
right, that it just pissed people off that bad. And it's so goofy, but it really showed like
Yep.
how divided we always had been, but we just didn't. I mean, enough people were kind of staying under the
We just
surface.
weren't owning it. We just weren't owning it.
I'm waiting for AI to come out as non-binary. AI is non-binary. AI is genderless. I love that. All the crazies. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Uh,
Even the identity crisis comes from God BS. That's interesting. Wow, that's an interesting concept. I have not really like heard that argument, but
what?
I can hear identity comes from God, not identity crisis.
No, no. I've heard identity comes from God too. I've
Oh,
heard that as a pushback. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Everything comes from God, apparently. You know.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I know.
Not to hurt anyone's feelings. We Jenny and I just don't believe that.
I'll hurt your feelings. That's weird. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm
Millions
sorry,
of
Jenny doesn't mind.
millions of years.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yes, something
Yeah.
that happened in the last 2,000 years. That's the truth. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. 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 So I think a lot of the rhetoric right now is so unfortunately violent
Yeah.
and angry. Like it's very angry right now, and we're in an election year. So that is one reason why it's so violent. That's another reason why it's so angry. Is because the angrier they can, just so in the people in the audience understand this, the angrier they get people, the more they gaslight, the more it will push those people to run and vote because they're scared. You've made them. They're coming after their kids. They're going to groom your kids. No, they're not. I didn't
And
groom my kid. No teacher groomed my kid.
right.
Nobody groomed my kid. My
If
kid grew up
anything,
and said, you know what? This is different than how
right.
I was born.
Right. My kids were fed heteronormative, cisgender world. That's what their parents were. That's where, I mean, I'm queer, but my kids didn't really know that. But like everything was binary. And they were raised up on the same SpongeBob and Sesame Street. And, this is just how it is. And that's who they knew themselves to be. And frankly, I'm cool with fighting fire with fire. Then we need to scare people into voting. You're losing your rights. And right now, if you have a uterus and you think that abortion bans don't affect you, stick around because it's just the first stop. It's just the
Yep.
first stop on the crazy train. And next, it'll
Right.
be things like birth control. I mean, birth control's kind of been under attack in its own way by religious folks for a little bit, but we really
Right.
haven't had any problem getting hold of birth control. It's going to be so many things. And then it's IVF. And personally, this is my opinion, I started saying it before the Alabama thing even happened, where I guess a friggin', egg is life, or I don't even know.
Right.
But I started saying it long before then. If they come for abortion rights, why shouldn't we be going for IVF rights? And it seems, I don't know, contrary to what I would believe, because I believe in anybody's right to choose how they get pregnant, when they get pregnant. If
Right.
they stay pregnant, I do not care. That is your business. But I'm all for going for IVF because you know who loves IVF are freaking pro-lifers. Like somehow my daughter should have to carry a baby she doesn't want because that's God's plan. Well, maybe God's plan is for you to be barren, Lucy. Maybe you're not supposed to have children of your own, but you can circumvent that with science. You can circumvent that with money. You can circumvent
Adoption.
God's will, all that you want with your own body. And I don't think that's okay. I thought immediately, shut down IVF. They throw away embryos all the time. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I only thought that because I knew it would piss them off and make them realize controlling people's pregnancy rights reproductive rights is a bad move. You're going to affect way more than just the girl that you think is out there screwing every Tom, Dick, and Harry, getting knocked up because she's loose or irresponsible. Cool, go for all of it. You don't get to make a choice, and I don't get to make a choice. Now we're on level playing field and we can all be pissed. So yeah, I'm all for scaring people. They are coming for your right to your own body autonomy. I'm allowed to go get breast implants. I'm allowed to go get gender affirming care. I'm allowed to go get on hormones as I go through menopause. I'm allowed to go get on hormone blockers, which I've taken before, because I don't want a mustache. That's not gender affirming to me. Men have mustaches. I don't think it makes me look feminine. I want to get rid of it. So I was taking spironolactone because I was getting like facial hair. Like, that's just my hormones. That's just how my body works. And so I'm all for scaring people. Why can I have all this autonomy and my kid can't?
Right. I mean, it's gosh.
Go for all of it. I'm all about strip everybody until everybody's pissed. I'm fine with it. Take it all until everybody gets pissed enough to stand up for it. Because in the meantime, we're just the others to them. It's just like, well, I mean, I definitely believe in I think that a woman should be able to get an abortion as long as it's not used as birth control. What are you talking about? Of course it's birth control. I'm controlling whether I give birth or not. So yeah, it is. And I should be able to have 100 a year if I want them. All day long. Yeet, 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 out you go. For whatever reason. At any time.
Because it's your body.
Because it's mine. I'm here first. This is mine. And I get to control what lives, grows, or does anything in it. And so, yeah, I'm all for it. Go for all of it. I don't care. Piss them off. If enough people get pissed and go, wait a second, now this is affecting me. Now this is affecting whether I get to have.
I think the scary thing about it is just how far the overreach goes.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
So in Texas, they had ruled that EMTALA, that you didn't have to treat a miscarriage, and that didn't violate EMTALA. EMTALA was created because during the Reagan era, they pretty much said, hey, if you don't have the money to pay, you don't give them care. So they were turning people away at the emergency room, and people were dying. So we passed this law that said if somebody comes into the emergency room, you have to treat them. You cannot let them leave if they are not stable.
Right.
So that should include women who are in miscarriage.
Right. Some of them are.
But Texas ruled that doesn't include miscarriage care. Now, we now have judges and lawyers and politicians making determinations of our medical rights that they didn't go to school for, that they don't understand what they're creating. Now, before EMTALA was created, we still had Roe versus Wade in place, right? So when women came in and they were having miscarriages, honestly, once EMTALA was put in there, nobody questioned what treating a miscarriage was. Nobody paused. Nobody said, is it critical enough? No one said, is she dying? No one said that. They just treated the medical emergency. And I want y'all all to hear that. It's a medical emergency because it could kill her, the mother.
I mean,
this thing that the carrier that y'all want to just say everything that's being carried, that's what has the rights. The mother is at risk of dying, of infection, of never being able to carry another one of these things that you're trying to force her to carry. We never had a question on what treating that was. And now we have women with infections. We have women with sepsis. We have women who are now infertile because they've lost their uteruses and they can never have another child because they didn't get the care they needed. And if that's what's going on with reproductive rights with women, what do you think the impacts of all this is with trans people?
Oh, I hate him. Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the death rates on the suicide right there and see the mental health impact this has on that particular community. So we know what we're doing. We know what we're causing, and we're writing it anyway.
Yep.
Your politicians are writing the bills and they don't care anyway. They say they do it to protect kids, and yet the true results are it causes more mental health harm to these kids.
Right.
More kids
And
are on the street, more kids are harmed.
And y'all, that's
Why?
bad for the economy. Like, if you want to think of it in economic terms, it's bad for the economy to have a mentally unwell working populace. It's bad for the economy to have people who not only can't work, can't, you know, produce or contribute. Now they're needing government handout because they can't do, you know, whatever. They need health care that they can't afford. They're going in for more emergency care services. You're stacking hospitals.
Yep.
I don't know.
It creates a mess. I was laughing. Cooper, well, actually, Tiana had put up there, the neurospicy in me appreciates how nice the bed being made is. And also, there isn't anything on the floor, lol. And then Cooper's on here. I'm kind of surprised there's no feline on it, lol. Okay, so now all I gotta say is you can't see my bed, and there's a reason. There's a reason. Like this is good. Right
This
now,
is
There's
house.
usually like 7 pillows stacked in this chair, and
Yeah.
they're all like thrown on the bed
Fair
right
enough.
now
Yeah.
for me to be in the bed or to
Well,
be in the chair.
this is my
So
little side table, and it is just packed full of nonsense because I redecorated this room to do the grays and yellows. And the only reason I did that is because my mother gave me free free stuff. So I redecorated.
no, I got you. I do it all the time. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Yeah. The feline said it's unbearable.
Terrible. Isn't he cute?
yeah, I was gonna say, and you don't have a canine running around tonight,
No,
surprisingly enough, right?
no,
Like, where is she?
they don't
He,
like me. I usually pick them up and show them off there. I don't know.
Right?
I
And
don't
he's
want.
not in there this evening. Oh
Yeah,
well.
he's
We'll see him next time.
the husband
Um,
and kid are home, so he's hanging out with them.
okay. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. And puppy time. Everybody's gotta have puppy time. Which I trust me. My kids went over, the boys went over last night at somebody's house, and apparently the dog was like rubbing all over my oldest, and he's the one that lost his Jack Wawa, and he was just kind of like I came home, he's like, more dogs, like dog talk, and they've been talking about what they want their next dogs to be, the both of them, and
Yeah.
so it's just like dogs, 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 and I just kind of like left the room. No, no,
Dog's the
they
best.
want
Hi,
another.
Leslie. Welcome.
Hey Leslie, they're ready for more dogs. And they kind of said that when the dogs passed, that we kind of said we didn't want any more big dogs.
Yeah.
When Chance, my pet, died, and Chance was like 65, 68 pounds. And now they're like, one of them's looking at a golden retriever, and the other one's looking at like a smooth or a rough coat collie. And I'm just like, oh, we were doing little
But,
dogs.
I like little dogs because I like little poop. Like little bitty poops. You don't
And
really
the
have to
food
pay
bill,
for
the food bill is a lot cheaper. If you go taking them for a walk, they don't rip your arms out, you
it.
know?
Like there's room on the bed. Listen, there's like two or three of them in bed with me at night. And don't get me wrong, I still can't move
Right,
because they gotta like
right. Yeah, right
against
there, right there.
yeah.
I had to, like, Gracie, both my rats slept with me. And so Gracie always wanted to sleep along my side on the outside of the covers. And Bella wanted to be under the covers. And she would kind of like, I sleep on my side a lot. So usually I would have one dog tucked behind my knees and the
Yep.
other dog tucked into my like waist, like
Yep.
cuddled up with that one. So I'd have like one on either side of me. And I'm cold natured, so I'm absolutely okay with it. They were my little heaters.
They are
Because
little
when
heaters.
they both were gone, it was just like, freezing. Why am I always freezing? And I was like, oh, I don't have a dog in the bed anymore. Because Chance was just too big. Like the big dogs were just too big. I couldn't sleep with them. Between my American Bulldog, he was huge. And then, yeah, the pit, and the pit didn't like to be up here. It was upstairs. He wanted to be downstairs. He wasn't an upstairs kind of dog. So he wouldn't stick around.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Reagan era. I didn't mean like era like that, Cooper. I meant like
No, it's
ERA.
perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It was an error.
Rats.
My
Leslie.
comedy.
Oh, okay.
Comedy.
Leslie. Rat terriers. So
Yeah.
I called them my rats. Sorry, my ratties is actually what I usually refer to them as, my ratties. But yeah, rat terriers. They're between like the Jack Russell and the Chihuahua. Like they're not as spastic as a Jack. They sometimes can almost pass for a larger Chihuahua. I mean, my smaller one did. Like we honestly thought she was like maybe Chihuahua or Whippet mixed. And then when we got her DNA back, she wasn't even rat terrier. She was like Beagle and Beagle and Jack Russell. And she didn't. She looked like a little Whippet, like a little
Yeah.
10-pound Whippet. It was just like what? But she also had about 8 other different things in there.
Yeah.
Nothing made sense. Nothing made. She was a definitely, what do they call it? A Heinz 57 dog, I think. I think it's what my mother used to refer. I don't know why. I guess because there were just so many things mixed in there. But she was, yeah. So yeah, they used to sleep with me, and I loved them to pieces. But the big dogs, yeah, I couldn't sleep with the big dog. I think my big one got to be about 80 pounds, and I as a like 9-pound puppy or 9-month-old puppy, and I was like, okay, um, you are taking up 2/3 of the bed. I love you, but floor.
Yeah. I'll just
And he
shift them.
eventually he eventually just went and slept on the couch downstairs and was like, okay, I'll just stay down.
No, I'd be afraid to hurt their feelings if they left. I'm a sucker for these dogs.
Well, I
I
mean,
love
no,
them.
I was kind of the same way. I definitely like my ratties. Yeah, like I said, when the last one, when Bella went, it was just like getting when I divorced and got out of my last relationship. Like I always had the dog, so I was never alone in bed. And then when she passed, the second one passed, it was something like I am now alone in bed. Like I have nobody to sleep with. Like this is weird. It was very strange for a little bit,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think this is interesting, Tiana's comment about, I guess, she served.
Being angry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, she did. She did.
Uh, that's got to just be an especially weird gut punch to feel, because you served, you did something that frankly I wouldn't do. And it's just because I don't want to. That's not my thing. But, I really feel like anybody who serves our country, I don't care what, you deserve everything.
Deserves. Right?
You didn't pay a tax ever. You want to do something to your body on the government dime, you should absolutely be able to. Hallelujah. Like
Get all the
it's
medical
something
care you
I would
need.
never do. And it's something that not everybody, what is it, like 1% of the population signs
Something
up
like
to
that.
serve? I could be wrong on that number, but it is not a big number by any stretch. And that's got to be an especially big gut punch. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I served my country, I fought for these freedoms.
And the thing
And
is I know several. I know several military servicemen and women that have transitioned either in service or outside of service. And then yeah, to turn around and be treated. Honestly, I've always been we are still at a place where we need to treat our veterans better. We've never treated them well. My dad was one. I can just tell you the amount of red tape he had to go through just to get care in the end, uh, and then how long it takes to get things lined up because there's so much extra red tape because you're in the military is stupid. Just give them access.
right. Like they're doing something that 99% of us wouldn't do. Won't do. Whenever my son came out, transitioned, people started saying, "Oh, are you gonna have him register for the draft?" No, and I wouldn't if he was a biological male either. No, if he doesn't want to do that,
There's something my son is having to get in case someone ever asks why he didn't sign up for that because he's now past that age. Like you're as a male, you're supposed to like register at a certain point in time, or at least in North Carolina. I think when you turn 18, you're supposed to register or something like that. And because he didn't, because he wasn't transitioned, now that the name changes there and that we're beginning to look at the change in the marker, that could potentially come up at some point. So he's having to get documentation, proof, so that if that ever comes up, here's the proof of why I didn't.
Yeah, because I didn't want to. Bye.
It's a mess. And once
Fuck
again,
this country. I'm
ouch, Navy
sorry.
and Air Force.
Country.
Um, I don't know that any particular group is better.
Well, no, I think he means like, the Marines are especially like we know this, like it's especially tough. It
Right?
takes an especially, I don't know, tough minded. I don't even know. But we recognize that our Marines really get the, you
Look at
know,
that percentage.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Not even a tenth of a percent. Wow. That's wild.
I don't think our military is what it used to be. And I think sometimes people worry what it stands for now as far as going in. But I also say the pay. Uh, I was married in the military. Like when I got married, my ex was in the military, and what he made our first year, and for having a kid, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I
Right.
look back on that and think, if he had been drafted, if something happened, he'd gone overseas, you would have paid someone. Now, granted, you would get extra pay because you've gone into hazard pay and you've gone overseas. But just thinking how little he was getting, and you expect people to serve the country for that,
Right.
and you're making so little that you qualify for like WIC and food stamps and stuff
And stuff. Right.
because you're paid so little.
To serve
Um,
your
right?
freaking country,
Country,
to
right?
be willing
Right?
to get blown up. Whether you get blown up or not, the fact you are willing to, I am not willing to do that. I am not
No,
willing.
no,
I'm not willing to break a sweat in a desert somewhere carrying weapons. I'm not willing to do that.
no.
And that's okay. Some people are. Some people aren't willing to do the things I've done in my life. That's fine. There's something for everyone. But the fact that someone's willing to do that always has impressed me. As
Right?
much as I cannot stand my country, I just can't. I just don't like it. I've always had a deep respect for the men and women and
Right?
folks of all types who are willing to stand up and answer that call. That's pretty badass.
Right?
It really is. And hats off to you. Thank you. I know it's such a weird thing to say thank you for your service, Tiana, but thank you for your service. My husband is also a veteran. And
I don't think it's I mean, my dad was a veteran. Like I had a lot of veterans within my family that went to Vietnam. I had a grandfather who was at Pearl Harbor, a great grandfather who was at Pearl Harbor. Like, I mean, a lot of family in different branches. Marines, were we everything? Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force. Yes, a little bit of everything. Or I don't know about Air Force, National Guard. So just about everything. Just about everything. And I just not respected. Just
right.
not respected. Not, I mean, and I can just say that from my dad had cancer and looking at the VA and how long it took him to get paperwork and hearing and looking at honestly all these veterans and how far they would have to drive to get to care and this all day wait
It's just
within
so
the cancer
goofy.
clinics
Why wouldn't
and
you just be able to go to a doctor and the VA takes care of whatever you
we
accrue?
have passed that. I don't know if that's at the national level, but I don't know, at least in North Carolina we did it. I feel like
Not
that's at the
here. My
national
husband
level.
has to go
But
to the
since my dad,
hospital. If he ends up going
okay.
to a doctor or like an urgent care, there are some things, and I don't know because I don't have enough
See,
experience.
cancer treatment used to have to be at the main VA hospital. So here in North Carolina, everybody had to go to Durham. No matter where you were in the state, you had to go to Durham to get your care. So my dad, I had to take him 3 hours to get there. But if you were like on the Outer Banks, you were taking a bus that would take 8 hours by the time you did the ferry ride over, and then they would put you in a hotel room overnight because you're really not supposed to travel more than 30 minutes after chemo treatment because of the fact that you could run the risk of blood clots. So they really don't want you traveling more than 30 minutes. And so my dad, like when he got further along in his treatment and got more tired, we would wait at my house, right? And or he would stay with my parents and then I would drive him back the next day. But now they've made it, at least in North Carolina, where you can go to the nearest hospital for like oncology treatment, and it can be covered. They've at least given that extension now, but that was not in place 8 years ago when my dad was going through it. And that's just, but that was 8 years ago. Why are we making our veterans drive that freaking far for
In
their
this
care?
year, 8 years ago, we are such an advanced society. I mean, we have so much at our fingertips, and you've got corporations making record profits, multimillionaires, billionaires not paying their fair share. It is just bizarre, honestly.
Right?
Honestly.
I mean that's the
I love
truth of
what
it.
Cooper and Tiana are talking about here. I'm actually the result of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober for over 7 years. And I went to one group. So in Oklahoma, you can find more progressive, more like kind of like secular, open-minded groups of AA and NA. Obviously, each group is
Right.
autonomous. That said, it ain't easy for the most part. In some place like Oklahoma, it's you're starting with the Serenity Prayer and then with the Lord's Prayer. And it's like, well, you just need a higher power and it doesn't have to be God, but JK, it's actually really God. And
A friend of mine really struggled with NA because of that, because he just didn't, that was not his foundation. And so he just scrambled like with, I don't believe in that. So what am I supposed to, I'm supposed to give this to something else, but I don't believe in something else. What the hell? And it just made the rest of it really difficult.
I made it work. But
right.
This very first group I was with considered themselves like old school AA. And I would go in and it was men on one side of the room and women on the other. And you didn't talk to the men and the men didn't talk to you. And there was a reason for that. And it's because as alcoholics, sober or drunk, I am kind of predatory when I'm unwell, when I am not treated and when I am not working toward a correct way of living. I'm predatory. I'll come after your husband. I'll come after your wife. It don't matter to me. I need validation. I need attention. I need something now that I don't have the alcohol anymore. Right. So that's how I rationalize that in my head. Then I had a girlfriend who's trans who came to me and said, hey, I'm ready to get sober. Can I come to your group? Will you sponsor me? And I thought to myself, no, because I don't think based solely on that whole men-women separation, I'm concerned you won't be not just accepted in the space, but truly welcomed into that fold. That is what's so important about that. It isn't just about sitting in a meeting. When you get it and you get a really good, strong recovery program, I mean, I was enveloped in love and support from people like me. And I was invited to things and we did sleepovers. And I just thought, I'm afraid she won't be treated right. And I left that group because of that. I mean, it was a culmination of many, many things. But that was the thing that really got me thinking, I just don't know about this. I don't know if I want to be part of a group whose message, and it didn't occur to me before. It just didn't.
Right.
I was waiting. I'm trying to get sober. I don't give a shit about anybody else.
And I don't think you know what you know until you know it. Like, unfortunately.
And it really hit me that like, if I couldn't tell a friend, you're welcome here, someone I care about, you're welcome here, you'll be treated lovingly here, you won't be discriminated against, then what am I doing here? That's not the right place for me. And I joined I moved groups to a very, very queer friendly, everybody on every kind of spectrum meeting. And it was really awesome. But I eventually left because every speaker meeting was a fucking sermon. And I was like, I just can't. I'm so tired of listening to somebody at the pulpit.
Well, everybody's different. Everything, I mean, everybody's different, and different things work for different people. And if it's not working for you, you have to find something that works for you. I think it's perfectly okay to go, this doesn't work for me. You're aware this doesn't work for you, which is good to know what you can, what does and doesn't work.
Exactly.
And we are right, and we are over time, which we don't care, but yeah. All right, but we are going to go. I got to figure out what next week. We have to figure out what next week's schedule is, or not schedule. We'll be here at 7 o'clock.
I'm hoping it will be our friends from the Equality Law Center here in Oklahoma. No guarantees. I do have to obviously work on their schedule too. But Joshua and Jennifer Payton started this. He's an attorney. His sister is trans. And he decided to dedicate his career to helping the trans community. So he helps with things
Awesome.
like name changes and with legislation. He's very, very active in Oklahoma legislation. So I'm hoping him and his incredible wife can come join us. Fingers crossed. If it's not next week, it'll be sometime very, very soon.
Awesome. Awesome. We look forward to it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. And for everybody who's been so active in the comments tonight, like we didn't even get to everybody, I will go back into them either at some point this evening and answer them. But thank you so much for joining. And if y'all ever have questions, then certainly reach out to either one of us and we'll get back to you when we can. Join me on Tuesday nights at 9:00. Mama Bear and Supporting Your Trans Child. If you ever have questions from the show, I kind of do a follow-up at the beginning of Mama Bear. Dr. Diana has now changed to day shifts again. So at night, she actually is available to come in and speak. So if you have any questions for her, again, she might be there that you could ask questions of her as well. So we invite you to come to that on Tuesday nights. And with that, we'll be back next Sunday at 7:00 here Eastern Time. I hope you'll join us. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Good night.
Okay, wait, bye.
Bye.